Hello and welcome to Class 7 of sil201 Intermediate Silhouette Effects with me, Ben Brownlee. And for the next couple of weeks we're actually going to be looking at human movement now. Now I know we've been looking at parts of the way that humans move in previous exercises where we've been concentrating on hands and hair, but for this one we're going to go back to some fundamentals and actually start to pick apart a bit of human movement and see how some basic anatomy can sort of really help speed things along. So we are going to split this class up into two sections. This week we're going to be concentrating mainly on separating out the body into different areas, and next week we're going to be carrying on with the more sort of intensive parts of the move, including that lovely little spin we've got going on there. Now, when we're dealing with full human roto, it does help to have some basic human anatomy behind you. You know, it doesn't have to be really completely in depth or anything like that, you know, but it does help just to be able to pick apart the simple shapes that we're going to be using. And we have a look on Google Books here just for human anatomy here. There is no shortage of books that are covering the subject. And if you don't mind books from 1849, you can actually get a full anatomy book for free on Google Books here. And here we have a lovely illustration taken apart our hands, which obviously would have been useful for our previous hands class. So here we are, and it looks like we were on the right track there anyway. Now, if you do fancy having a hard copy of a book going on, if we type in human anatomy and movement in here as well, we also have some other, actually a whole range of other books that are designed around this sort of movement. So we've got the Artist's Guide to Human Anatomy, or if you want something that's a little bit more medical, we have Anatomy and Human Movement. And the good thing is we can preview a lot of this directly on Google just to see, you know, whether it's something for us, and if it is, we can pop along and purchase it. Now, like most medical textbooks, these aren't the cheapest books you can find, but like most academic books, there are usually a lot of used ones around at a fraction of the price. And a lot of the time, you don't really have to look much further online than where you would normally buy your regular books. But with that in mind, today we're going to just look at a couple of different ideas. Now, of course, I won't be teaching you full human anatomy, but hopefully we'll get some sort of idea about the way that I approach things. One of the things I do like doing when I'm looking at this sort of shot is to start thinking of the body as a sort of like a machine, as a sort of series of levers and joints, sort of all mixed together that we can take apart. Now, the thing that really sort of starts to separate out a human body, separate from sort of like a hard surface machine, is we're not just dealing with a series of, you know, predictable parts, you know, hard body parts that are just moving in exactly the same way. You know, we do have the movement going down. If we just take a look at the left leg here, we do have the movement of the glutes coming down to the upper leg, going to the joint of the knee, going to the calf, going down to the ankle, and then to the foot. So we do have, you know, that hierarchy built up there. But one of the other things that is interesting to note is, you know, we're not just dealing with a series of bones here. We're also dealing with muscles that are moving as well. So we'll take a look at this leg here. Instead of just staying the exact same shape all the way through, as the different muscles come into use, you're going to get different parts flexing and compressing. This is going to add another layer of complexity onto our hierarchy here. So we have not just the movement of the hard bones going on inside, but also the soft tissue going around the outside. And with most human roto as well, we do have clothes to think about as well. So this is going to add another level of complexity as well. So we don't just have, you know, most people aren't just running around in sort of a skin tight suit. And even with a skin tight suit, we're still getting some clothing issues. We are going to see, hang on, let me just zoom in here. We are going to see clothes start to pucker and bulge as well. So that's going to add one more further level of complexity onto our shot. So how do we start to break this down? Well, let's take a look at the shot in its entirety again. Take a look and we start to do our traffic light system that I'm so keen on. And if we take a look, we do have some small camera movement in there. There's a small amount of camera shake going on in there, which I would like to get rid of. And then with regards to the actor here, we've got motion blur to consider. We also have obviously a large range of motion when we have this full flip going over. So we're going to have to find a way of dealing with shapes coming in and out of frame throughout the entire shot. But the first thing I'm going to do, stabilize the shot up. So we'll come over, add my my layer in here. My camera stabilize, come over to my tracker. Let's have a look. We do have a bit of rotation going on here. So over here seems good. The little palm on the door, and let's take the socket on the wall as well. Got a bit of noise going on in the footage, so we'll blur that up, sharpen it up. Bit of contrast, have a look on what's going on here. Yeah, that's all going to work out fine. Luminance is looking good for both of these. Probably takes to the start frame. Let's just track. In a moment, let's just select them all, or both. There we go, and track that forwards. Cool, let's just step through using Z and X. That's looking all right to me. So let's just apply all of this, and we'll apply rotation as well. There's not really any scaling going on, so we'll leave that off for the time being, see what that gives us. And stabilize it up. There we go, nice and stable again. Always good, as we've seen before, to work on a stabilized plate. Cool, I can get rid of those trackers now, they've done their job. And let's take a look at the movement here. So I'm going to try and find the most complex frame to start with, and we're going to start with the legs and then work our way up. So here's probably a good place, frame 54, and I'm only going to concentrate on the first 76 frames today. Cool. So let's take our first leg, our left leg here, and we'll start at the top. So let's take the this meaty part up here, come down, and take the glute there, keeping our shapes nice and simple again. So we'll call this glute left. Now when it comes to naming conventions, a lot of people have their own particular style. Well, as we'll see, actually let's take us on the next one here, and we'll take us down the leg. So I'm going to do the top leg here, and I'm going to make sure that we do have quite a bit of overlap between our shapes. That just helps us out and reduces the chance of having any gaps. And I'm going to call this one left leg, top. This is glute. Left glute. Yeah, so I tend to go for the side, the body part, then the height. So whether it's top or bottom, and then any sort of other characteristics I go for. I must admit I'm not as consistent as I generally should be. Sometimes I switch around by going body part, then side, and then height. But I tend to keep it, plain enough so that if anyone needs to take over my work, they can look through this hierarchy and actually quickly understand what's what. Cool. So actually, before doing the leg here, I'm actually going to just come in, turn that off, and we'll keyframe up the glute there. So let's take it back. So here's where you can start to see we've got this overall shape, but as the body's moving around, it's coming in, coming out, because it's it's not hard bone. This is soft tissue. There is going to be some form of movement and flexing going on within it. So let's come in and try and keep this as consistent as we possibly can. So it is at this point where it might be necessary to come into our reshape tool and do some reshaping, but as little as possible. So I can tell we can probably just come in, transform this up just a wee bit. If I hit TT again, I can just nudge these, and using the arrow keys, the cursor keys, I can just nudge them one point at a time. So it kind of goes off around about there. Nudge that out. Cool. Take to the next point here. Now there could be an argument made actually for, I'll see if I can get this going while I talk. Yeah, there could be an argument made for, tracking our character here whilst we, and trying to use that to take out a lot of the roto that we're going to be doing. But for this sort of stuff, actually the tracking's not going to be hugely useful. Simply because it is moving around too much. It's actually, just as it was with the hand, it's better to take out the camera movement and then roto out the other stuff than it is to be fighting to get a good track. Which will actually work against us in the long run. So you can see as we go further back, the shape of the glute here disappears out, and it's at that point where you really want to start to capture it. Cool. Well, I think we've done enough butt work for the second. Let's work our way down onto the leg again now. So come back to our frame 65 where we started and lock up our glute. And let's take a look at this one. So this is again another just exactly the same sort of thing where we've got our shape is changing up so much because the muscle itself is flexing and changing in different ways. So I just use the transform and W to go into quick rotate mode to transform that up. So we're looking for those areas of movement, not just in like the total character way, but also looking for it in in terms of how the muscle is starting to move as well. And we do have a little bit of a gap coming in here, but this isn't part of the leg. This is part of the costume, so we're going to be filling that in later. So at the moment, what we want to be doing is getting the big meaty stuff out of the way, and then coming in and working on filling in those gaps after. There was a question in the forums about, where do you strike the balance between creating lots of smaller shapes and as opposed to creating some complex shapes. Where's the time going to be saved? And there's no sort of general sort of rule of thumb that I can think of about saying that this is how many shapes that we break every piece up to, because each shot is different. But the thing is, you break it into as small a number of shapes as you can, and if you're breaking it into if the shapes you're creating have a lot of points to it. Here we just look at the total number of points in this shape. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and even that is quite a good number of points. That's quite a large number of points. We can probably get away with taking some of those out, but if we're going in and trying to roto up some very complex shapes, like something spiky, for example, we don't want to be going in and drawing all of those spikes in as one if they're all moving individually. So you can see one of the things that I'm also trying to avoid doing is animating individual points, trying to avoid the reshape as much as I possibly can, and using the shape transform as far as I can do. And the reason for that is it does keep shapes a lot more consistent. Cool. All right, because we've got actually something. Let's take this into full screen with F here. Take a look at that and turn my overlays off. And let's just set that swing going between frame 47 and 65. Oh, 65. Let's type it in the right place, shall we? There we go. Cool, because we've got something else happening here in a second. And that is, our leg is moving from being bent at the knee, as it is here, to going a bit straighter. And this happens a lot when people are walking, obviously, is you have this, instead of just like a regular kind of scale and rotation going on, you have this sort of change in perspective as legs move up. And that's something that is, again, much more easily taken away with the transform tool and the distort, so holding down the Alt and just distorting your shape up, than it is by using the rotation scale tools, which actually don't describe the same sort of movement. So this is much more distortion movement than it is a rotation and scale movement. Cool, let's work our way down even further. I'm going to look at the calf. I'm going to skip out on this joint here for a second, because we're going to come back to that. And we're going to come down and look at the calf. So let's take the calf here, frame 53, look up the top of my leg and come in, and let's just, here again, we're going to take turn the overlays on again. Yeah, we're going to take the muscle here as our reference point, because the muscle itself, let's move on a little bit. See, the muscle itself is going to be changing shape. The bottom part of the foot here isn't going to be changing shape because there's very little muscle going on here now. That's pretty much all bone. But here we've got a really big calf muscle going on. So this is where we're going to be looking for that. Just get that looking good. Again, with the motion blurs we saw before, I'm going to just take it to the sharpest edge. And then we'll see what we're doing after that. And this is left calf. And let's just quickly keyframe that up. Now here is actually, we do have a fairly regular rotation going on, because the top of the calf here, or where we've drawn our shape, is exceedingly close to the knee joint. So we know that whenever we're going to start to rotate stuff up around this knee joint, let's select our calf. So when we're going to rotate this up, let's bring this over here, we know that the anchor point is going to be around our knee joint as well. So if I hit W while my cursor's over the knee, that's going to get us a bit closer into the area where I want to be. Now this shows us up actually something else that is kind of interesting. Let's just turn this off for a second, turn the overlays off. Is that we're starting to see a perspective shift. So our first keyframe, we had just a back shot of the calf itself. But as we come back again here, we can start to see the front part of the foot, so the shin that we couldn't see before. So the question starts to come is, how far do we start to sort of change up this shape here to take in this newly revealed detail? And to my mind, this is really another sort of classic case of, how simple can we keep this? If there's not much more exposed than this here, I probably wouldn't be against actually coming in with our transform tool and seeing if we can, seeing what we can do to distort this out a little bit to take in that new area, because the area is it's actually rather small and there's not a huge amount of extra stuff revealed. So as I come through here and I just see that actually I need to bring this up a little bit to get my consistent point to point. Keyframing, so we're looking for consistency all the time. So you can see I'm actually not having to do really too much to get that looking all right. I'm going to count my stripes up here just to make sure I've got the same number of stripes going on, which I do not. There we go. Yeah, so if I don't have to change my main shape too far, then I would come in and keep that as one shape. Just keep it simple, keep it nice and consistent. If on the other hand I was seeing a whole new side of that there, then I would come in and start to create a new shape. And this is one of the things we'll be seeing next week. Cool, so we've got another point of impact there. Let's come in, was going to say rotate that around, but I really don't have to. Boom. And that's the keyframe there. So you can see that it really does make sense, especially when it comes to this sort of movement, is to look for the proper keyframes rather than coming in and rotating, say, every 10 frames. If we look at the distance between each of these frames, we've got 4, 3, 3, 4, 3. So you've got 3, 3, 3, 4. And here, well, we're coming all the way to the end until we have to add our next one. Cool, so we can start to see this working out now. Cool, and we'll just do a little bit more of this this bottom leg here before we look at our joint. So again, we're going to start to overlap, and this is going to be coming down past the ankle, because we're looking at the joints again. Keep it simple. So when it comes to the main jointed movement, we've got the ankle, we've got the knee, we've got the hip coming up. This feeds in, going all the way up to the spine, which gives us some, a huge amount of flexibility going on there. We've then got the neck, shoulders, elbow, coming down to the wrist. Then the finer details going on in the hands and the feet, of course. So looking at this in a different way, this is where having a little cut out and keep skeleton next to your desk is going to be a bit of a help, especially when it comes to looking at the joints themselves. But moving on to actually continuing on with our foot here, we know that this is going to be rotating around the ankle. So this is, and that's going to give us our clue for where our anchor point has to be, of course. And this also shows us why we need to have a nice overlap, because if I come in, just turn my overlays off again here, I want to have a nice smooth transition. And if we don't have a big overlap going on between these different shapes, then it's actually very likely that we're going to get lots of small holes coming in, and we'll then need to fill those with other smaller shapes. Definitely not very efficient. So coming back here, looking at the movement, we've got another case of the foreshortening here, simply because the perspective is changing. And when that happens, just going to use the distort. Come down a little bit too, we'll come up just a little bit too high there. Let's come bring that back down. Very important we do keep consistency. And it's mainly edge consistency. Let's actually, come in and make that a little bit clearer. We don't really care too much about what's happening inside with all these overlapping shapes. The only thing that we're really going to be seeing is this edge coming in, and if the edge is cool, really doesn't matter too much what's going on inside. Missed the boat with that one a little bit. Let's see what's happened there. So here I don't have to get hung up too much about this this particular edge at this point in time, because it's being covered by the boot. I only have to be worried about it in as much as it's going to affect the overall animation, the overall sort of point consistency. So you can see when the foot comes down, we've got that compression going on. Boom, compression in the foot. So it's actually throwing us off a little bit. Cool, I'm going to come over here and let's bring this over to my ankle. Set my anchor point. Transform it up there. Alright, let's see how that's looking. Let's give this a name first. Left leg, bottom. Turn on my motion blur everywhere, even in the node. Let's take a look at that. Take the stabilize off. Let's look at the mask, and you can see we're getting somewhere there. There's nothing that sort of stands out as totally weird. So we've got that compression hitting here. Boom. Compressing down into the soft floor. Bouncing back up. So the thing that we're missing really now is our joint. So that's our knee joint. Make sure all of these locked up. Cool. Now knees are funny little things. So we've got our actual knee bone going on here, and that's connecting the end of the femur and the top of the tibia. And because the main muscles of the legs are sort of pinned here, so we've got the quad going on here, then we've got the calf on the back of the bottom of the leg here, the tibia and the fibula. There's not a huge amount of muscle that's going on around the joints here, so we can quite clearly see, these the structure of these bones when we're seeing it from the side or from the top. And that's why particular attention has to be paid to the joints, because they can form some quite interesting shapes because of the structure of the bones behind them and the fact that they're so visible. Now, when we're seeing it from the back, we need any of that fine detail, especially with the costume on. So what we really have to do is to sort of try and look at the simple shapes that we've got going on here, or identifying where the simple shapes are. Now I can see I could probably actually extend, or I should actually extend the top of the leg, so the quadricep here at the bottom. And I can do that without affecting the rest of the shape. So probably the best view that we have of this is going to be here at frame 53. And by all rights, we could be splitting this up into the section here for the top of the leg here, which is going above the joint, and one for the bottom, which is just not really just not covered by the calf all that well here. With this keyframe on the calf here, we can actually come up and bring that up, and that still remains consistent with our point-to-point matching anyway. So that was just a mistake as we were going through. Got one too many keyframes there. So let's fill this shape in here. Actually, I'm looking at my top leg here again. See if I can reshape that any way to keep that nice. Not really all that much different than before. So we'll come in, we'll do a couple of fill-in shapes. Do one for the top and one for the lower part of the leg. Alright, so let's start with the top and come in, taking care, keep it nice and soft and nice and overlapping as well. Left leg, top knee, op knee, top knee. There we go. And we'll just come in and quickly fill this in. Cool. Here I am going to have to reshape just a little bit. Now notice what I'm not doing. I'm not coming in and totally reshaping this area here. And the reason for that, and let's just give this a bit of a better colour. And use Shift A just to shift through my different overlay styles here. So the reason for that actually is because this area here has nothing to do with our new shape, with our new yellow shape. It's actually all to do with our main quad here, so our left leg top. And it's this one that at this point needs a little reshaping just to fill in the bottom gap here, because that's what that's concerned about. And then this one, the top knee, can then fill in that small amount there. By doing that, we actually hopefully keep a much more consistent overall view of things. Cool, and now that's done, let's do the bottom part of the knee. Again, taking it wide, so we have a good amount of overlapping. So we can keep that edge consistency going nicely without worrying too much about what else is happening there. So left leg, knee bottom. This is going to be knee top. Let's take this just to a sort of more calmer colour now that we're not really interested in it. Working on it anymore. And this should probably follow the same keyframe pattern as the other one. Yep, it looks like it is. We can see here, this is actually another fun thing about doing human roto as well, is that the speed that everything's moving isn't consistent. Different parts of the body are moving faster and slower, and they're slowing up or sort of speeding up and slowing down at sort of non-linear speeds, as we actually saw with the hands as well. So it's just more things to keep an eye on. This is where things are going to start to rotate around a little bit. Cool, so we have things bouncing around a little bit in there. Which I'm not particularly happy about, so delete the keyframe, try and find another part. Cool. And we're starting to get there. Of course, we need to clean up a few of the edges and stuff, but actually we're not doing too badly at all. I'm going to blur that up just a tiny bit. And let's see what happens when we have a look at the composite. Take off our overlays. It's a good way of just checking for consistency at the end. So you see, we're getting there. So that is one leg down, another leg and a couple of arms and a bit of body and a couple of feet just to go. So you get the idea of where we're heading by breaking down the body into a lot of smaller, turn my overlays back on, to a lot of smaller shapes here. And just how we can use the idea of some basic human anatomy to get our small shapes working as part of a larger project, and how by doing it we are actually saving time and getting a much more consistent movement than would do by coming in and keyframing every single frame on a more complex shape. It does take a little bit more time to begin with in the setup, but especially over a slightly longer period of time as well. So if we're going all the way back from our first frame to our, how many frames we've got here? So from our first frame to our frame 190, it's going to be impossible once we get to these more complex movements to be able to keep all of that consistent if we only had one shape to work with. So what we're going to do in the next class is actually build on this and see how we can start to work that when we build in more complex moves, such as the spinning and rotation that we have going on here. Great, well I hope you enjoyed that. Send me a message in the forums with any questions, as you have been very good at doing up till now. And for now, my name is Ben Brownlee. See you again next time.